Welcome to the Adventure to Freedom podcast. Three, two, one. Welcome back to the Adventure to Freedom podcast. Today, here with the legendary, inspirational triathlete, Matt Sharpe.
It's a very generous intro, legendary and inspirational. I'll hopefully try and provide both, on this podcast for you.
That's what I was hoping for, yeah. Exactly. So, you've been doing how long have you been doing triathlon for?
So, I've basically been doing triathlon. I'm 27 now. I did my first one when I was 9.
Wow.
So, 17 years or so. So it's a long time. It's been a long journey. I started out as a kid. It was just kind of a fun thing, doing it with my family. And now, I'm out there basically trying to make the Olympics. So it's kind of been this crazy journey.
Wow. And what do you mean you did it with your family? Like, you guys would do, like, family triathlons?
Yeah. Basically, like, at a lot of these races, they have, age group races for, like, people who are adults and, recreational. And then they have kids races as well, typically. So I would always jump into the kids race, and my dad would do the adult race, and it was just kind of fun. Our families, traveled around and did these races and for a while, and it was just a fun thing to do.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have that, like, support and inspiration to kind of get you into something so healthy and that you obviously have some passion for now.
Yeah. Like, I was doing the triathlon thing. I think it was a family friend who got us into it. They did the sport as well, just recreationally, and so I kind of just they were like, hey, like, Matt does swim club or whatever. He ran track in elementary school. Maybe he'd like to do this, and it was interesting though, that timing, because essentially at the same time that I got into triathlon, we had Canada won the first gold medal in triathlon at the Olympics.
Oh, okay.
So for me, kind of coming into the sport at that time, and then seeing this massive result from Simon Whitfield, I think it also made me think, wow, like, this is something that, like, I could potentially do someday. Because he also, I was at the time in Campbell River, so just North Island, but Simon was living and training in Victoria, so not too far away. So it just made
you since trained with him as well, right? Or?
I have, I have.
That's super cool.
The last couple of years of his career, I was able to join in with him, and it was a great opportunity, just because when you're coming up as a junior, you're not really sure what it takes to kind of get to that level, and to be able to be in the same place, training in the same pool as this guy who's done, he's been to the top. It was it just was very, very inspiring.
That's crazy to be able to kind of train with your hero. Or
for sure.
So when you started, I guess you built up the distances and stuff. Did you get into it through swimming then? Was that your main one of the three?
I mean, I was doing swim club, and then through the winter, and then triathlons would just be kind of in the summer. Just like a kind of a fun thing to do, like I said, with the family. But when you're a kid, the distances are obviously pretty short. So it's more kind of introductory, and then as you if you keep progressing through the sport, they get longer and longer, and it just kind of makes it so it's a little more easy to handle the racing.
Totally. Well, I've done the sprint so far.
Pretty good.
Yeah, you'll be happy to know I'm doing another sprint.
Very good.
In March.
That's what I like to hear.
My sister's trying to get me into it.
Nice.
But even that's individually, they sound like pretty easy distances. Like a 700 meter swim, 20K bike, and then 5K run. You're like, oh, each of those by themselves, no problem. But when you start putting it all together, it can, it's a real effort.
I tell you, it's one thing, when you get out of that water and you stand up and you start running towards your bike, it's a bit of a shock.
A little wobbly.
All your blood's in your arms, and you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And so those are always those transition periods between the sports are always kind of, they're difficult for sure. And especially, coming off the bike, if your legs are heavy, they're tired, trying to run on those heavy legs, it's those first few minutes are a bit tricky.
Have you seen people, for lack of a better word, just like eat shit during those transition
Yeah,
periods?
it definitely.
Is it a risky time in the
It
triathlon?
is a risky time. You
Yeah.
know, if you're fatigued, you're tired, you're not thinking that straight. You know, you might you see people kind of get off the bike, but they're coming in to the transition with speed, and they might slip off their shoe or something and just go face plant or some crazy stuff like that. You know, just kind of tripping. You're just kind of tripping over yourself a little bit. Yeah. And if you're coming in with a lot of people, you know, you're jostling for position. So yeah, it can definitely get hectic.
That's an important. You can save a lot of time in the transition between the sports as well, right? Like
for sure. Like if you come out of the swim and if you're wearing a wetsuit or something, you're swimming in the open water. You know, if you're not familiar with how to remove it quickly, you know, you can be standing there for minutes trying to get this thing off. And, you know, all this hard work you just put in trying to go fast in the swim, it's just gone like that. And you know, as well on the run, you know, you can get special laces, so you just slip your shoes on, and it saves you a bit of time if you don't want to be there tying your shoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all down to the seconds.
It is. At the high performance level, it's those things are all kind of mapped out, and you know, those are practiced as well. You know, those transitions are literally, they say, you know, triathlon is 4 sports: swim, bike, run, and transition.
Right.
Yeah.
So what distances do you do now?
So it's interesting. Things have changed a little bit within the kind of, I guess, Olympic sphere of triathlon racing. It used to be that there was only one distance, and that was the Olympic distance. So 1,500 meter bike, 40K, or 1,500 swim, 40K bike, and 10K run. But now there's a lot of those, like you said, sprint distance races. So half the distance, it's instead of racing for roughly 2 hours, we're racing for an hour, and that's just
intense.
That's pretty intense. Yeah, it's definitely full gas. But then as well now it's just kind of been introduced is the a relay for triathlon.
Oh, okay.
So this is a new thing. Basically, you know, each country for their relay team, they have 4 athletes, 2 guys and 2 girls. So it's mixed gender, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a new thing. And then also the distances are exceptionally short. It's essentially a super sprint. So it could be like a 300 meter swim, maybe a 6 or 7K bike, and then a mile on the run.
Oh wow! So you're just ripping it.
So you're just full tilt. You know, you're tasting blood, you're chewing stem, all that kind of stuff, because it's just it's full on. And you know, it's very interesting having this kind of team dynamic. You know, typically triathlon is an individual sport. You compete by yourself, all that kind of stuff. But it's changed the game a little bit, and you have, you know, you're out there racing with your teammates, with your countrymen. So yeah, it kind of adds a whole new dynamic, and you know, it's kind of fun for us to have that kind of thing.
And so how is that split up then? Is it you're still doing all 3 of the sports?
Yeah.
Or how's the relay work?
Yeah, so the relays, it's everybody does this super sprint race. So it always starts off, the first girl leads, and then they tag off to the second athlete, which is a male. Male does his super sprint, tags off to the other girl, who then tags off to the other guy, and then the 4th athlete, the last guy, finishes the race.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's cool too, because you know, different countries and different athletes have different strengths. There could be a lot of different, you know, lead changes and different dynamics in the race that, it's just, if you're watching the event, it can be very, very spectator friendly. Yeah,
it sounds like a lot more fast-paced, intense version of that. So when you're training for those distances, what sort of distances are you doing to prepare for this? Yeah, it depends on the time of the year. You know, at the moment, we're kind of in an early season training phase. And so we're doing a lot of volume, you know, in the swim, bike, and run, because, you know, there's not too many races on the horizon. So you want to try and get as fit as possible. I'd say for the swimming, probably doing about 20 to 25K a week, which isn't, you know, essentially, it's not too crazy, especially if you're a former swimmer or, you know, swimmers, they'll tell you that's, they'll tell you it's not too crazy. But on the bike, maybe, it depends, I'd say maybe 300 to 400K a week, but on the upper end, and then running, you know, about 100K a week. And how do you usually split that up? Are you combining those exercises each day? Like, would you go out and do a bike and a swim, or a run and a swim, or all 3? Or do you just focus on one sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain sessions that we do typically more in race season. It's, they call them brick sessions. So, you do efforts of either swim bike or bike run. And they're usually pretty short, just so you can do multiple efforts, which also gives you a chance to work on those transitions at the same time.
Right.
But at the moment, we don't do any consecutive stuff like that. But, a typical day for us, it could be, we'll be swimming, and then, right after the swim session, you'll kind of get some recovery food, all that kind of stuff, but then you'll head out on the bike pretty quickly after that. And then maybe later on in the afternoon, you go for a run. But we're also doing some gym work as well, so you got to throw the gym work in whenever it kind of makes sense. Yeah.
And what kind of stuff would you be doing in the gym to help with these exercises?
Yeah, I mean, basically for us, we're just trying to get, I guess, essentially strong enough to handle all the training and, basically just make ourselves as robust as possible and resilient as possible to the training. So for someone like myself, they're doing squats and, essentially working the glutes to make sure that they're always kind of activated and making sure they're firing properly.
Right.
And some good core work as well. Especially for a tall guy like myself, I've got these kind of crazy long limbs. In order to, it's important for everyone to have good core, but especially if you're tall, you really need to make sure you're able to control them, because you don't want to, if you're making, all these repetitive movements, thousands of repetitions a day with your arms and your legs, you want to make sure they're as, I guess, effective as possible. Totally. So, yeah, core work and then a bit of upper body just to maintain a bit of strength so you can pull some good water through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to end up just being a triangle.
You don't want to, no, not too much, not too much.
Are there certain exercises that you guys do that particularly help to offset that imbalance in trainings?
I guess, really with the core work, we're doing a lot of stuff there. If you use like a foam roller where, you're in the plank position and then kind of sliding back and forth.
Ooh.
That's a tough one. I struggle with that one.
Yeah.
And that just, good
Would you use like the wheel as well then?
It's similar to the wheel.
Okay.
Probably not as intense. I'm definitely not a wheel guy myself, but, and then, there's another good one, core exercise as well. Just essentially, you're lying on your back, legs are up at 90 degrees, and you're lowering each leg individually.
Oh, okay.
So, it's another good core exercise. We're actually, one of kind of the new things we're working on is more like Olympic lifting stuff.
Okay.
So kind of like
compound exercises? Or?
Yeah, explosive power to,
Cool.
because of these shorter distance
Like
races.
the fast twitch
A
muscles?
little bit. Yeah, for sure. So, a bit of, we were doing some hang cleans where you gotta, you're kind of holding the bar around your knees and then trying to just lift it up as quickly as you can.
Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff, it's a little, I haven't done too much of that, but I can definitely feel the gains, the hashtag gains on those ones.
Beast mode,
yeah, exactly.
Wow. And is that, has it been difficult to transition from, like you said that this new sort of super sprint, or this super sprint is new now. Mm-hmm. Is it difficult to transition from, because what would the distances you would have done before?
Yeah, so essentially we've got, our range of distances is, way bigger. But it's funny, you see the top athletes who perform well, at the Olympic distance also perform exceptionally well at the super sprint. So it seems to me that, if you have sort of the right tools, I guess, if you're, a good enough swimmer and a strong runner, a strong cyclist, then you'll be able to perform well at all those distances.
Okay. Do you prefer this distance to the Olympic distance, or?
I like it. It's funny, it's one of those things, when something new happens, sometimes people are resistant to change and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And there's definitely, a bit of pushback when that kind of stuff came in. But, I find that actually it's good for me. I've had a history of injuries and all that kind of stuff. And so, for me, being able to race shorter distances versus just always racing the longer stuff, it actually, just helps me stay a bit healthier, and it just allows me to race more, essentially. And I love to race, so more of that, I'll take it.
What sort of injuries have you had to deal with?
Yeah, a lot of, when I was younger, I think just when I was growing and trying to do the training at the same time, there's probably points where I was just doing way too much volume for my body to handle. It's funny though with triathlon, you know, you can develop such a good aerobic engine, almost too good for your chassis, I guess, in a way. You know, you can have this like nice Porsche engine and a VW chassis kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's been part of my issue as well. But it's funny, I had some pretty significant, I guess, overuse injuries, and and so that's, you know, I've had stress fractures in my shin and in my feet, and I've had other kind of overuse, like soft tissue overuse injuries, like, you know, IT band. It's mostly related to running for myself. Just because of that's the pounding, the constant stress. You know, in swimming and cycling, if your technique is off and you're doing, you know, all that training, then you can eventually obviously injure yourself. But with the running, it's just, it's a function of, you know, your ability to handle the load versus the amount you're actually doing. Interesting though, for myself, I know I've had to change kind of my decision-making process around when I've been injured. So
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so basically, I think it's hard because you don't want to admit that you're the one who's kind of causing this. Sometimes you always want to look for a scapegoat, like, oh, I was just doing too much volume, or my coach made me do this or whatever.
My shoes are wrong.
My shoes are wrong, yeah, exactly. And, you know, some of that stuff can contribute, but ultimately, you know, if you start to feel pain, you know, it's up to you to stop, right? So I can just think of times where I know where, you know, I felt this kind of, I guess, the start of an injury where, you know, you can feel a bit of pain, but you can kind of train through it because, you know, usually if you're training hard, you have a pretty high pain threshold, but, you know that it's probably, you shouldn't be doing it, but it's just,
you gotta finish that.
You gotta finish, you want to finish that workout, you want to, you know, hit those times or something. So, yeah, I think a few years ago I had an injury where I was out for a long period of time, and I was kind of in a tough place, and, you know, I had to really look at sort of why that happened and how I ended up there, and ultimately it came down to my decision making with respect to, you know, the injury and how it caused it. And so, you know, ever since that kind of moment, I've been able to essentially train injury free. I've had little things crop up, but you know, every time they've cropped up, I've been able to make good choices and not have them set me back, you know, more than a couple days or so.
It sounds like it was like ownership of it.
It was, that essentially. You're right. It essentially came down to like just owning it, and, you know, then when you do that, it kind of changes. Yeah, it changes how you react to things and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was kind of a big moment for myself.
It's an interesting issue to have, overtraining, whereas, you know, there's so many people out there who can't get off the couch.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's the paradox, I guess, or whatever. It's you know, you have too much motivation in a way. Almost you need to back off. And I've seen athletes over the years, who've continued to make those mistakes, and it's, you know, I could just see it's like, no, like, you're not. It's not your coach. It's not. It's like ultimately it's you.
Right.
So,
and I guess doing more gym work and stuff as well can help to battle that.
Yeah, well. for sure.
Activating different muscle groups and.
Yeah, I can think of, like, you know, the gym work. Yeah, it just makes sure that the correct muscles, you know, you're able to activate them, and, you know, also if you're working on certain muscles that you know, help stabilize the legs when running. Right. You know, we'll work on that kind of stuff too. I've been running in Hokas, so they're kind of these Hokas. They're kind of famous because they're really thick in the sole.
Okay.
So I think
these are shoes.
These are running shoes.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the ones I train in, like pretty much all the time. They're really good for me. I just find that because they're so thick in the sole, they take a bit more stress away from, like, your joints and you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, ever since I've been using them, they haven't, you know, made me injury free, but they're definitely a part of why, for sure.
Do you then race in different shoes?
I do because for me it's like, you know, I don't want to be, because these Hokas, they're great for training, but they're not kind of race specific. They're a bit heavier, all that kind of stuff. fine when you're training, but when you're racing, you don't want to give an inch to your competitors. So
Right.
I'll use more kind of like low profile.
Do you start to transition to those getting close to the race? Is it hard to
Yeah, like
do you notice a difference? Like
definitely this time of year, we're not doing too much intensity, but we're doing a lot of miles, and so for this time of year, great, I'll be wearing those Hokas for most of my runs. But as we get into the race season, then for certain quality workouts, maybe not the whole workout, but for bits and pieces at a time, I'll throw on those race flats just to get the legs kind of used to the lack of support, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you find a big, like, how much of an effect is the equipment? Because like from someone who is very alien and kind of amateur to the triathlete world, like I see some of these people when I did my sprint. Some of these people have these bikes, and I'm biking to work or something,
and these guys are flying by. Yeah. It's interesting because, I think at the top end, if you're kind of with your competitors and stuff, most of the stuff is going to be pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's all kind of psychological.
Right.
But when you're racing recreationally, maybe like a $10,000 bike might make 20 seconds in a 20K bike or something, but ultimately, it comes down to the training, in my opinion.
Have you found certain brands or equipment though that work just better for you?
Yeah, I mean, with the running, I would say those Hokas. I've raced on a lot of different bikes over the years, and to me, there's not too much of a difference, I would say. It's more been my fitness or my strengths at the time. So you have to kind of look at that, a little bit objectively. But yeah, for me, the equipment, not too much of a difference. But if you're, some people are really into that stuff, and if you feel like you get on that special bike and, maybe psychologically make a little bit of difference, but in reality, not that much. I'm
glad you mentioned the psychological aspect too. That's something I wanted to kind of dive into with you. How big of a part is that? Like, how do you of the race?
So you're always in your head, right?
Yeah.
You're always there, and it's interesting. I think a lot of the times, I've had to assess, I guess, my kind of how I react mentally to racing and all that kind of stuff. If we're just talking about racing over the years, because I think when I was coming up as a junior, I'd definitely be more anxious on the start line. And I don't know where that came from. Maybe I just had really high expectations of performance and that kind of stuff. And I think that's something to consider. Those, you have those expectations pre-race.
Totally.
If you're going to a race thinking I want to come like X position or beat this person, I think I definitely had that, but I had to learn, that that's not really, I guess, the healthiest or the best way to optimize performance.
Okay.
So, typically when I'm getting ready for a race, I'll have kind of different, I guess, process goals that I'll want to hit in the race,
Like what?
Basically things that I'll want to work on. So for me,
running your own race instead of
essentially within my own race but obviously, hopefully these things will get me to the finish line ahead of everyone else.
Right, of course.
Yeah, but for me, so for example, in the swim, I always want to have a really, really fast start, and just kind of get myself ahead of the people around me and kind of get myself clear water, because if you're beside people, you're generally not really swimming that well. Usually you're fighting each other for position. Right. So that's kind of something I work on, and I'll have that's something I work on the swim, and then on the bike, my goal maybe will be to try and kind of stay out of the front of the bike pack, positioning and that kind of stuff. So I'm not looking around to see who's around me and all that kind of stuff. I'm focusing on where I am kind of within the race, and then for the run, it's kind of like working on more technique or physical cues, like keeping my arms short levers to make sure I don't overstride or anything like that. So most races I go into these days, I don't really have a goal I want to hit. I want to come 5th or podium or whatever.
Right. But
I have these process goals that I believe will get me as close to the top of the podium as possible.
Is that something that you worked on? You guys work on with your coaches or within your group? That kind of mental aspect?
I've seen kind of different sports psychs and that kind of stuff over the
Cool.
years. So that's kind of things I've worked on with them. And just talking to other athletes as well, really, they're, especially the ones who are kind of older. When I was coming up, I was just kind of trying to be a sponge and just learn as much as I can from them. But yeah, it's the mental side. It's huge. I mean, obviously, if you're not physically fit, you're not going to think yourself to a high performance. But you can definitely almost lose the race if your head's not in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you end up thinking about during the race, or are you trying to kind of not think and be more in a flow state?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's in the race. I'm just analyzing what's going on. Who's like if there's a group ahead or if there's a group behind. But typically, yeah, I'm just trying to stay out of trouble on the bike or something. In the swim, just trying to make sure I'm in the good, on the feet, drafting, not trying to basically conserve my energy as much as I can.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at mid race.
Are you thinking like you said earlier, I guess, about the technical or the technicalities of your form and stuff too, or?
Yeah, and on the bike too, the courses will be generally, there's a lot of turns and stuff, so I'm thinking ahead to the next turn, sort of where I want to be kind of in the bunch before the turn, or how fast I want to be going, that kind of stuff. So there's always something I'm kind of engaged with. I try not to let my mind lapse too much, just because then what someone attacks or something and I'm not ready to respond. So
right.
Yeah, it can be it's very mentally taxing, those competitions.
I bet. And you would practice on the course as well before you get into it?
Yeah, we do actually. We'll get out, they'll have course previews and that kind of stuff. And typically, when you're doing the bike previews, you don't really get to do them at kind of race speed. So
okay.
You have to...
Why is that?
Just because of logistics, there's traffic and stuff on the roads, all that kind of stuff. So you have to kind of, when you're out there, you have to be mindful, of what the corners look like, if there's any obstacles, potholes or manholes or anything. So, that's an important part of preparing for an event as well. Just kind of being engaged. When I'm on a course preview, I'm trying not to talk to people who are around me. I'm trying to just stay focused on, what I need to know for the competition.
Just making mental notes of stuff, and then do you create a strategy after that for the race, specific?
Yeah, definitely. Usually my coach and I will talk about kind of, kind of tricky points on the course and kind of, where maybe the wind will be hitting and that kind of stuff. So, and he's quite good tactically with that kind of stuff. My coach, John O'Hall, he used to be a professional bike racer. Cool. So he knows, how people act in the group and how kind of the dynamics of the race can play out. So it's always valuable to have him kind of there coaching me through that kind of stuff.
What does a strategy typically look like? Is it you wanting to, kind of pace yourself during these parts and really give her at certain parts? Or?
Yeah, in triathlon, it's funny. You're trying to basically, conserve as much energy as you can. So you're kind of and staying as near the front as you can, as much as you can during the race. So for the swim, I generally won't try and lead out of the water, be the first person out, because you're out there, you're basically, you got people sitting behind you who maybe you're doing less work. Although that is to say, I guess if I really wanted to, I don't even know if I could, because there's some really fast guys out there.
right.
But that's kind of just that kind of stuff, really. Yeah. But it's interesting, going back to the mental stuff. I had an experience at a race. It's what do you think about when you're standing on the start line?
Totally.
Yeah, and for me, it's funny. I kind of have gone to this place where, literally I'm standing there and you almost have this moment of gratitude, because, you have this opportunity to be here, to be competing, to be kind of performing at a high level. And because that kind of precipitated out of an experience where I was at a race in China, and they had these buses that were going to the course because it was a bit further away from the hotel, and so I wanted to ride my bike there, but I didn't want to carry my bag because I was feeling kind of lazy. So I tossed my bag onto this bus, and I got to the course and kind of looking around. There's a bunch of buses, and bag wasn't on any of these buses.
Oh no.
And so there's this whole craziness. I ended up finding out that it went back to the hotel and had the bag in it, and they sent someone to bring it to the race course, but I wasn't sure if it was going to get there before
And this
the
has
start.
all
my gear.
Oh yeah.
Race suit, like race shoes, all this kind of stuff, and yeah, and it was crazy because this was happening. It was very stressful, obviously, and I had to basically just like take a step back and be like, okay, like just chill, and it ended up working out. I ended up getting stuff in time. It was obviously not ideal preparation, but yeah, it was funny as I was running to the start line. I was like, wow, like 20 minutes ago I wasn't gonna be here, like I wasn't gonna be able to race. Like I came all the way from China,
totally,
and I wasn't gonna be able to race. So yeah, that was kind of a very, I guess, humbling moment, or I don't know. Yeah, it just kind of changed my perspective because, you can take for granted that like you could easily not be on the start line.
totally.
So yeah, and that's kind of, it makes it a very positive experience when you're standing there. You can get caught up in the nerves and all that kind of stuff. But for me now, it's like, no, wow, like, I'm here. I have this opportunity. Let's make the most of it.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, gratitude is one of those things that keeps coming up in different media I've listened to or things I've read and stuff as a really powerful emotion. So it's cool that you bring that up.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously hasn't always been that way, but yeah, it's been interesting having that perspective. Obviously, I had to go through that crappy experience of losing the bag and stuff to get it, but ultimately, I think it's helped me, in my kind of competitions and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just having that appreciation for what you have and this opportunities that you get.
I've used that even at lesser levels, but like on a lazy day. Like, oh, I don't really want to run. Like, I should be thankful that I can run. We live in this beautiful place.
Yeah, you do.
Back to China though. So you've trained and raced all over the world.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky with the. I mean, because I've raced for so long, I've had a lot of opportunities to travel, to compete and race, and yeah, it's interesting. When you travel these places, you just experience new cultures, and yeah, it's incredible. So I definitely feel lucky to have had those opportunities.
Where's been some of your favorite places to train and places to compete?
I think I went on a training camp actually. It was a long time ago in 2012 with Simon, and he took me on this training camp, which was an incredible opportunity. Got to train with a lot of Olympians and really high level athletes. And we were in a place called Wanaka in New Zealand.
Okay.
And New Zealand's interesting. It's like the Canada of, I guess, the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Beautiful place, friendly people. They got amazing food. And this place in Wanaka, yeah, it just was like there was like this big lake, and the town was, everybody was super friendly there, and the roads that we rode on were breathtakingly beautiful and great running trail. It had everything. It had this amazing culture. So I mean, that's probably definitely up there with one of my favorite places I've ever trained. There's been it's crazy. There's been a lot of places, but that always kind of, I don't know, it just sticks out of my mind. Maybe because I was so young and it was kind of like a more than just like the place. It was like the context around it.
Right. Experiencing the people training with that kind of high tier.
Not to like, I mean, I've been a lot of places lately and stuff, which have been great as well, but I don't know, maybe it's just the context around it.
Can you list a couple of places you've trained?
So it's
competed.
I'm trying to think. Last year I spent a lot of time in Australia, which is cool. We raced Commonwealth Games there, and then we had our World Championships there. Last 2 years we've done some training in the Netherlands.
Cool.
A place called Sittard. It's kind of in the south. It's one of those crazy places in Europe where like 5K that way is Belgium, and then 5K that way is Germany. It's kind of an interesting, and you hit 3 countries when you do a bike ride or something, which I don't know, for me coming from Canada like that, it's the kind of unique experience.
The only training, you got to bring your passport along with you.
Yeah. Well, luckily you don't, which is nice. But we also, I think last year we were in Portugal for a while, and just outside of Lisbon, which is really beautiful. That was a great spot as well. It's kind of just along the beach. There's a very nice beach there, and Lisbon's a really good city as well. There's a lot of good culture and food and everything. And it's kind of it's been some spots, that's for sure.
And you're gearing up for, it's a qualifying race in Singapore coming up?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The race coming up in Singapore, it's actually not associated with kind of the Olympic stuff.
Okay.
It's kind of, it's called Super League Triathlon.
Okay.
And it's what I would essentially call like a startup. You know, these guys have they wanted to basically disrupt typical triathlon, do something different. They had these races with different formats, kind of similar to the super sprint where there's short, fast races. You know, a lot of them are kind of new formats. So, for example, one of them that they put on is called the enduro, and the enduro is you know, short pieces of where you go swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think then another swim, bike, run. I think it's 3 in a row.
And 3 of those super sprints?
Essentially, yeah.
Gnarly.
Yeah, but you don't take a break in between. It's just continuous. So, yeah, it's really fast paced, super spectator friendly. They do a really good job on the media, and the coverage and stuff. And so yeah, the race in Singapore is kind of the, I guess, grand finale of their 2018-2019 season. So yeah, it should be pretty exciting. I'm excited to head to Singapore for the first time and see what it's like there. There's the last couple races in the Super League series were pretty tough for me.
Why's that?
There's some big hills and I just wasn't in the right place to tackle them. So I think this course is flat, so I'm happy about that.
Do you find it difficult, like competing in different places? Like, how do you prepare for different climate, different altitudes, and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's kind of hectic just because there's so much racing. You can never be, you know, perfectly prepared for each one. You kind of have to pick your battles a little bit. But yeah, I think it comes down to just, you know, staying healthy. I like to think of, you know, fitness a little bit and racing fitness is kind of like compounding interest. You know, every year that you're healthy, it builds on each other, and it doesn't, you know, it just keeps building. So for me, you know, if you have that kind of money in the bank, then you're going to be able to
health money.
Yeah, exactly. Fitness money, you'll be able to you know, cash it in at most races.
Interesting. Do you notice the difference? Like, can you feel the change in altitude, or if it's intensely hot or really cold? Or something?
When, you know, coming from Canada, we don't get exposed to, I guess, the extreme heat too often. But when you go to a place, so when I go to Singapore, it's going to be, you know, 35 degrees, 100% humidity. So yeah, once I get off that plane, I'll definitely notice it. And you just have to kind of adjust your training a little bit. You have to adjust your pacing a little bit in the races just to make sure you're not going to totally blow up.
Do you go earlier and kind of acclimatize as well, or do some training there too?
If it's a really so for example, our test event for the Olympics is going to be in Tokyo in August, and so we'll probably go about 2 weeks before to kind of acclimatize to the heat and humidity that'll be there. The Singapore race, we're trying to get in our typical early season training, so we're not going to be going there too early, so we'll just kind of have to deal with it.
Interesting. But you do a lot of your training in Arizona as well. So you find that being an advantage to have the heat, or? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, heat, with respect to training, you know, it's just another stress that you put on your body, and it's another opportunity to, you know, to recover and kind of build fitness off of, I guess. So, you know, if you're training in the heat, it's an added fitness benefit, really. So if we're training consistently in hot weather, then, you know, you'll come off of that fitter than if you were just doing the same training in kind of milder weather.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of recovery, what do you do for recovery? Do you do like ice baths and massage and stuff? Or?
Yeah, for me, I kind of was into ice baths a little bit ago, but I don't know. I haven't really been doing them that much lately. For myself, it's more kind of that self massage and kind
using
of
like the rollers and
using
stuff?
the roller, using the lacrosse ball. That's a big one. It's one I use a lot because that's tight muscles, especially in the glutes and the calves. These calves get tight real easy. And I also get frequent massage treatment. So for me, that's important as well. You know, sometimes you're just too tired to do that kind of stuff for yourself. So it's nice to have someone work on you.
Do you do anything for the mental aspect? Like, do you do any meditation, or do you still see any sports?
I infrequently see a sports psych, which is good. It just, honestly, sometimes it's just nice to have someone else to talk to you about racing and that kind of stuff. So I'll see my sports psych every month or month and a bit. but in terms of like meditation stuff, I'll do. I don't even know if it's meditation or maybe it's my own version, but sometimes you know you just take a quiet kind of minute, 2 minutes, just to kind of like, you know, center yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's nothing I do, I guess, on schedule. It's more organic, I guess.
When needed.
When it just kind of hits you. Sometimes you just gotta take a step back.
Yeah, there's a lot of stimulus when you do something like that. Because I'm pretty informal with that as well. But sometimes I'll sit and I'll just try to close my eyes for, like I said, a minute or 10 or something, and you just realize taking all that stimulus out for a minute or two, and you're like, wow, like there's a lot coming at you, especially.
Yeah. And in your head too, sometimes these things are coming at you, and if you can kind of silence them for a bit.
Yeah.
And it's good. And
do you do any sort of mental prep right before the race with that? Like, do you calm yourself down or anything? Because you said you used to be kind of anxious.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes that crops up a little bit, but I'm a lot better now at recognizing it and kind of just acknowledging it and then letting it go.
Yeah.
I think, you know, for me, I guess the mental prep is just a little bit of visualization of the course, you know, how I want to take certain corners, you know, just you're trying to, you know, psych yourself up a little bit so you picture yourself, you know, doing things successfully, and, you know, chances are you'll probably be able to do that in the race. You know, I won't like be on the start line doing any meditation or anything like that. I'm kind of the opposite. I like to joke a little bit and talk to people, because it kind of just, I don't know, it just relaxes me talking to people. I'd rather be chatting with people than kind of just be in my head all the time.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny, my buddy and I, we kind of have a joke now where we'll be on the start line and, you know, just start joking a little bit and say, hell yeah, like last race of our career, like all this kind of stuff. And, you know, it's kind of just a funny thing. It kind of
probably throws people off though.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, I kind of, you know, sometimes it might. I don't know if for some people, but you know, and that's funny though. That is kind of falls in the same, you know, vein as what I was talking about earlier. You know, about, you know, having that opportunity to race, and it's like, well, what would you do if this was your last race? It's like, well, we'll find out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you do lots of visualization then? Like, how does that, was that before the race? Do you, like, during training, you're kind of, do you picture yourself through the whole course or run the course, or?
Yeah, I think if I've done a race before, sometimes when I'm in training, I'll kind of visualize myself, like, you know, being out on the specific course or something.
Like, while you're training, you're visualizing that you're in the race, almost, or?
Almost. You kind of put yourself in that place, because you know, when you're training and you're working hard, all that kind of stuff, you know, it's the same feeling. You're trying to hit that same feeling you'll get during a race. So when you get to the race, it's second nature. You know how to deal with it. You know how to manage the pain and suffering that you're doing out there. So yeah, it's something I like to do. I like to kind of put myself in the race situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you, what do you do when you are in that race and you're experiencing that pain and suffering? Like, how do you find that drive or that extra little, like, oomph to say past someone or keep going when you're...
I mean, I love racing. I love being out there. It's hard because I'm not sure exactly what I think about. You know, psychologically, if you're in a good position within the race and, you know, you're going to get fired up on that. You're like, all right, I'm going well. But maybe if you're in a race and, you know, things aren't going as well as you would hope, sometimes you kind of have to, you basically have to reassess your whole outlook and be like, instead of thinking we're going to fight for a podium, now you're fighting for top 6, and so you make that your race.
Right.
You forget about stuff that it's probably not going to happen, and, you know, you focus on as well as you can do at that moment. There's definitely been some races this year where, it's been kind of going not so great, and you almost can succumb to that kind of negative feeling, but then you have to realize, like, you're out here, you're fighting these people for, you know, points and a paycheck and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, let's go, let's do this, even if it's not for, you know, a podium or anything special.
Do you find, like, sometimes as a very amateur athlete myself, when I'm out for a run or something, I will go through, like, waves of emotion. It'll be like, I can't go any farther, I'm exhausted, and the next will be like, this is great.
No, it's same for everyone. I had a 30-odd minute run this morning, and I think I went through like 5 different highs and lows there. And, hopefully the more you do it, the highs get less high, the lows get less low. It's more kind of steady. But yeah, you just kind of have to, it's like anything in life, you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, and you just kind of got to keep the faith that it's going to work out in the end. And, typically if you stay in long enough, you'll see a good result, or you'll feel good,
Do you find that helps you with other aspects of your life, that kind of mental exercise?
I mean, for sure. Like I've, with my life, I've had definitely different ups and downs and stuff. And I think sport has taught me those lessons, like just stick with it and, stick with the process, all that kind of stuff. And eventually, things will go well. And I know I can think back at times where, I wasn't doing super well. And, it's kind of related to sport as well. You're in those lows, but yeah, you know that if you keep working hard, you'll eventually get through it.
And where do you get this drive? Like, what drives you to compete at such a high level? And you seem very disciplined, and you work really hard on yourself and your craft.
It's funny, like, I think when I was younger, it was a different kind of motivation. When I was younger, like, I would go to these races and I'd do really well and win, and it's like, I just want to, like, keep winning, all that kind of stuff. Like, I love to win. And then over time, your perspective changes a bit. You get older, you mature a little more, and you obviously stop winning. So, like, why are you going to keep doing it if you're not winning anymore?
Not always, though, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, too. So, I think for me, I love, I guess, you're talking about, like, the physical activity and racing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it comes down to, I love the lifestyle of being active, and, I do have these goals that I'm constantly chasing, and that's a big thing, is just having those either, big goals like the Olympics, or those kind of monthly goals like certain races, or even daily goals, you want to hit certain times or something in training. It's satisfying to have those goals to go for.
Do you break down your goals like that too? Do you have like, oh, I need to hit, this many kilometers on the bike this week,
Yeah, for me, that's not really kind of my thing. I mean, my coach will decide that anyway, so it's not really up to me to figure that out. But, for me, it's more like when I'm out there, my goal is to be as engaged as possible, and, be as mindful about, my technique and, how I'm responding to, tough times and stuff. So for me, it's often not, like, I want to go X time for this swim.
Right.
But it's more just kind of like those process goals, I guess.
Right. It kind of sounds almost like being like in the moment, in the race.
Yeah.
Do you find, like, have you ever experienced, I've heard some athletes, and other people as well, but refer to kind of like a flow state where you're just in it?
Yeah, it's funny, like, I definitely have those moments when I'm racing, but I definitely also have those moments where, there's a lot going on, and it's not so flowy, because when we're racing, a lot of the times, you got other people around you, and you're jostling and stuff, and so that's, I guess, more so maybe in the training, where if I'm off, riding my bike on my own or something, I've definitely had those moments. And it's interesting, it's hard to, like, if you ask me, like, how do you get to that stage? No idea. I have no idea. Like, I couldn't tell you any way to do it. I guess it's, maybe it comes down to just, if you have something you're kind of engaged with, like if I'm cycling, I want to hit, I want to hit a certain cadence, those revolutions per minute. Maybe if I'm focusing on that, then it'll kind of take me to that place, I guess. Yeah.
Get into that zone. I found sometimes, like, when I go swimming, well, sometimes I'm just flailing.
Well, that's me too. It happens.
But sometimes, like, when I get into a nice rhythm, and, like, you're just focusing on your breathing, it almost becomes sort of almost meditative in itself, where you're just like, you're not really thinking about anything except for breathing.
Yeah.
And tightening the core. You told me that.
Yeah, and that's funny. Yeah, and that's funny. Like, when you're maybe training by yourself or something, I think it's maybe a little easier to kind of get to that place.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're with other people, it's just, there's stimulus, you got people talking to you, and all that kind of stuff. So maybe, I think it's something maybe a little easier if you're off on your own to kind of get to that, I guess, flow state. Do you train with music or anything when you're going for longer rides or longer runs? When I don't really at all, and it's one of those things, like, like if you want to, that's totally cool. It's just not something that I like to do. I don't know, when I'm out running, maybe especially if I'm by myself, I like to listen to my breathing, and I like to listen to my stride sort of hitting the ground, because if I can't hear the way my foot's hitting the ground, then I don't know if it's, maybe as efficient as it can be or something like that.
Interesting.
But I get why having music and having that kind of stuff can be very beneficial, because, especially if you're doing a quality, workout or something, you're in the gym, you're listening to a song that's getting you fired up. Sometimes
Totally.
You're not going to be able to get as fired up on your own, and thinking about whatever. So
interesting. Yeah, I was thinking, because I've been biking to work and I've been but it's more out of necessity. So listening to tunes helps it go by faster.
Yeah, for sure.
It does help me fire up, but it's interesting to hear that.
It's funny,
the
like
difference.
a well-timed song at a certain point in the ride. It's like, boom, let's go. Like,
you
so
get
I
some
get
good
that.
Electronic stuff. Just boom, boom, boom. You find your
cadence within the song too. Sometimes they'll match up that way. So
that's interesting. So you like to not use music so that you're more in control almost of your technique, your cadence and stuff like that?
I think so, yeah, just so I can focus on that a little more, for sure. And at the end of the day, I can't use that stuff when I'm competing, so if I become reliant on, this kind of song at this point in the workout, and I don't have that when I'm racing, then, it's that for me, that's not really building resiliency in my competition.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, back to competitions. Do you still get like an adrenaline dump or anything or adrenaline spike or anything when you're competing? Yeah,
I think that kind of adrenaline rush and the nerves and stuff. It's definitely there. For me, sometimes I think it's if I get too much, then it's like, whoa, like
totally,
you're a little crazy. So for me, I almost have to manage it a little bit sometimes. But I know that when something happens, maybe in a race, like I running in a group, and maybe. Someone trips on my legs and I kind of stumble or something, you'll get that like crazy rush, and sometimes it's a good thing because you'll get up and you'll like be on a whole new level. That's when you go beast mode.
Right. Because I've seen, experienced a little bit too in some martial arts. It's like if you go into a fight, you get this huge adrenaline spike, but then on the other side of that, sometimes you get like a dump, and all of a sudden you're exhausted.
This is within the fight?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like you'll go out and you'll have the spike, and energy for days, and then all of a sudden, if you've used all that adrenaline, all of a sudden you're just at this adrenaline dump.
Yeah, right. I can't say I've experienced that too much. I mean, I know after, I guess like a big race or maybe a really good race, sometimes you have this like, I guess you're on such a high when you finish, and it's awesome, blah, 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 but then maybe like the next day it can kind of be like a little depressing, because like there's so much of this like endorphins and whatever other chemicals that you've produced with this high, but then you come down from that, and it's and it can be actually a little bit like, oh, like you just get a bit low.
I guess you built up so long like for that event or something too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that whole process emotionally and then those, I guess, chemicals are released, and then it's like taking drugs, that's the thing, like being an endurance athlete, essentially you are addicted to exercise. At the end of the day, you are addicted to the endorphins and the whatever, I forget the other ones, but like whatever's released when you do training and you do all that kind of stuff, like, which is why when you become injured and you can't do the training or whatever, is you become sort of like like you go through withdrawal symptoms. Same thing, in my opinion. And
you experience that a lot when you're like that runner's high and...
Yeah, and you kind of like, maybe it's not so much like a full-on runner's high, but if you're just doing it every day, you're getting your hit every day. It's just, you just get used to it.
I found even getting back into some training for this triathlon sprint coming up, I had to bike to the pool the other day, so I biked the pool, and then I biked to work after. I did like, it was maybe 10K bike and then like a 1.1 swim.
Pretty good.
And thanks,
triathlete.
Thanks, dude. Trying to make you proud. I got to work and I was just like, I was so mellow.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't care about anything. So I was like, oh, this happening. I'm like, it's all good.
Yeah,
like,
whatever, man.
I found the the consistent exercise is a huge mood elevator.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I just know the days that I don't train in the morning. Yeah, I'm not the same kind of person. I just don't. I'm not the same as as when I exercise first thing of the day. It kind of just sets me up for the rest of the day, to deal with whatever's coming my way.
And is it like how often a week do you train? Is it an everyday thing? Do you have a rest day or scheduled rest? Or?
Yeah, we're kind of on our schedule right now. It's kind of like 3 days on, 1 day off. So that 1 day off either will be completely off or it'll be maybe an easy run or something. So it's more like a mental break too than anything because you're just on so much those 3 days with everyone and blah, blah, blah. And then you get that 1 day off. Maybe you just need to like totally zone out.
Right. Did you do any sort of yoga or stretching and stuff? Or
I do some kind of targeted stretching. I know some parts of my body, if they get too tight, then that causes imbalances, within the rest of my body, and that can lead to injury. I don't have a set routine typically. It's just kind of like when I feel something might be a little off, then I try and stretch it to kind of, I guess, counteract it. But yeah.
Do you find the longer you've done triathlon and competed, like, do you have more of a body awareness? Like, can you feel something coming on?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I just, I just after all those injuries over the years, you know when something's not good, when it's kind of, this could be something bad later on. So, yeah, I can do a better job of kind of targeting, if my calf's tight in a certain spot, I know kind of where to kind of roll over to release the tension in the muscles that maybe your calf's tight, not because your calf's working hard, but because your glutes tight, and so you need to focus on that and make sure it's loose and activated before you do your next run. And sometimes whatever was in your calf just goes away because something further up the chain is affected.
So do you find also, like, your fuel has a big effect on your performance? Like, do you have a strict diet, or do you think about what you're eating a lot? Or
yeah, I do. Like, I guess it's not like a restrictive diet in a lot of ways. At the end of the day, I need to get enough calories to be able to do the training. Yeah. I try and eat whole foods as much as I can, but sometimes you just need a shake from the old McDonald's. At the end of the day. That's just the way it is. But I think more so the fueling around my training,
like timing of it, almost.
The timing of it, making sure that I'm not eating a big meal and going out for a run right after, because that'll be troublesome.
But having enough calories to burn and do that exercise.
And just making sure I have enough calories. I'm taking in calories when I'm training, because even though, I might have a session in the morning, I still need to fuel during that session in order for the session later on to have enough energy for it.
Are you doing that with like gels and
gels, bars, all that kind of stuff? I'm not the kind of person who's really going to be making my own things. I'm kind of lazy that way. So I'm a big fan of like Cliff products. I've used a lot of those. So
what's your go-to like recovery meal, or after? What's your go-to meal during training to recover, and then like your celebratory meal?
I would say like when I'm training, I really like to make pizza. I don't know why, I just like pizza. I'll make pizza with like prosciutto and some good veggies and stuff. But and there's usually a lot because I'm always hungry.
Yeah. And you must go through a lot of calories.
I do go through a lot of calories. I haven't really ever like measured it, but it's probably like 5,000, 6,000 on a big training day for sure.
Like that,
But then a celebratory meal, I don't know. I kind of eat generally what I want, so there's nothing that I'm really craving. But usually though, it's like I'll crave like a good beer.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause you're pretty much sober through training, hey?
Not exactly. Like every once in a while, like maybe once a week, I'll have like a drink or something. But generally, like I'm just not frequently drinking. So it's something. Yeah, when you deprive yourself of something like that, and you kind of just want it. So I usually, and I like all the breweries around here in Victoria. So,
you can't.
Yeah, I miss that kind of stuff when I'm away for sure. It's calories and calories out. I think I try and eat as healthy as I can, and I can just see myself whenever I'm done competing, I'm gonna need to keep exercising a lot because I do love to eat. So it's just one of those things where because of this high performance lifestyle, I've ingrained pretty good habits in terms of like exercising and stuff. So,
Totally.
you know, wherever I'm done, I'm sure I'll always be riding my bike. I'll always be running. So you got to earn that food. So
do you have
that's
a
one way to do it.
favorite or least favorite of those activities, like the running, bike? Is there anything that you...
I don't know, because like some
doing
days you feel really good doing something and then you're like, man, I love this. And then some days you won't feel good and you're like, screw this, like swimming sucks or whatever.
Yeah.
I just know that whenever I'm done, I probably won't be swimming much.
Really?
Just because swimming's one of those things where it's really good. Like it actually is quite good exercise. You know, it's low impact but good aerobic work. But it's just not super social. Like you don't go to the pool and
right.
You know, it's not like going for a run or a ride with your friends. You know, you're not going to be chatting that much. So I don't know. I think I could just see myself doing more cycling or running.
Do you like that like social aspect of...
Yeah, I do for sure.
Interesting.
It's you know, one of the benefits for sure.
But how do you balance that? Because like, I mean, there's the social aspect of it, but you don't get to where you are without extreme like personal drive to get like... It's not someone who's just like, come on, Matt, we're gonna go to the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's one of those things where, you know, I'm lucky I have a really good training group of people. So in Arizona, we've got a great squad of athletes that, you know, push me every day. But if they weren't there, I'd still be out there training because I have these goals and I've been working really hard, invested a lot of time in them. And yeah, it's just something I want to try and take to completion. So yeah, I don't know. And I love to... And that's the thing too. I'm addicted to exercise, right? So I'm gonna be out there anyways. I get my high.
And one of the major goals you've been working towards, of course, is the 2020 Olympics.
Yes, Tokyo 2020.
And so what's next to get to that? What's the path?
Yeah, the pathway. It's very interesting. Triathlon's kind of weird. It's not like a traditional sport like swimming and running where you have these time standards and, you know, if you're first or second at the qualifier, then you go. It's a little different than that because there's different races, different courses. It can be very, I guess, subjective. So a lot of the decisions will ultimately come down to our high performance director. And so basically...
Sorry, you're what?
It's like a high performance director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're kind of like the boss of the whole program.
And
I think there's a bit of a committee too as well. So he'll be on the committee with other people. But, you know, every race, essentially, the way I look at it, every race is an opportunity to showcase your strengths and showcase your ability to perform. So, you know, and if you, at the same time, too, you have to be getting the qualifying points to qualify, I guess, your country a spot on the start line. So, yeah, as of right now, our country has 2 spots for the males, and I have one of them.
Cool.
And, you know, the relay as well is going to be a big event because... At the end of the day, if you want your country to win a medal, it'll be easier to do that in the relay because there's only going to be about like 14 or 15 teams actually in the event. So, you know, the 3 in 15 odds versus 3 in, I guess, 65 or 55, you know, way better odds for that. So,
and that's you're hoping to compete in the super sprint?
Yeah, so my goal for the Tokyo is, I think, Canada is a chance to win a medal in that relay, and then
and you're hoping to be on that team.
I want to be on that team,
That's
for sure.
sick, dude.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm obviously focusing a bit more on the shorter stuff just to kind of, you know, obviously show that I'm capable at that distance. Yeah.
And so you have Singapore, which isn't a qualifier.
Singapore is kind of a separate thing.
Yeah. Right. And then what other qualifying races do you have before
Tokyo?
Do you know yet, or?
There's 4. There's gonna be 4 more relay opportunities this year. So I just want to be on that team every single time to showcase my abilities. So I think the first one in Abu Dhabi, there's a relay event, and that's 2 weeks after.
Dhabi.
Yeah, that's another spot for sure.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah. So 2 weeks after Singapore, we'll be there, and hopefully win the relay team there, and then just kind of go from there. But at the same time, I've got to be getting these Olympic qualification points, which essentially every ITU race going forward will have some Olympic points. That's like the Olympic side of things. Yeah, so there's the Super League and then there's the ITU.
Okay.
Yeah, but so every ITU race that I'll do will have Olympic points, and so it's an opportunity to...
And is it done by like
other
position and time for the points, or how does the
points position
given? Okay.
So first is X amount and then lower each one.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I think right now I'm sitting 29th on the what it would be the Olympic simulation. So yeah, if the Olympics were held today, I'd be the 29th person on the start list or whatever.
Cool.
So
out of the world?
Yeah.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I would like to be a little higher, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
like every person, you know, you always want more. But it's
but
just
that's a lot of people still.
it's good. It's good. I'm happy with where I'm sitting, and obviously the big thing, I just need to stay healthy and put myself on the start line. So yeah,
you got some opportunities coming up to get past that.
Yeah.
Or get higher up in those rankings.
Yeah, for sure. Just got to take some more people down. Take some names. That's right, all you people watching.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in the longer distances after, like, maybe after you do the Olympics? Like, would you ever do like an Ironman or anything like that?
I actually kind of want to do an Ironman just to do one.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, I've been engaged with the sport for so long. That's such a big part of triathlon, the longer distance stuff. So yeah, I definitely want to do one someday. In terms of doing it professionally, not sure. I mean, like I said, I've been doing triathlon for so long, you know, it'd be kind of nice to maybe do something else with my life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I still love competing and I think I could be successful at it, then yeah, I might give it a go.
Because the Ironman competitors, they're usually like our age or a little older, right?
Yeah.
The best in there.
Like after 2020, might, you know, it might make sense for me if I wanted to keep competing to do that kind of stuff, because as you get older, your endurance gets a little better, and so yeah, I think maybe like there's the potential for that for sure, but it just depends on how I'm feeling post 2020.
Right. Yeah, you have to take some time, reassess.
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of like, what are the longest distances you've say like ran, biked, and swam at one time?
Oh, I've done a 150K ride, and in that training camp in New Zealand, and it was like you finish climbing up a mountain, which is crazy.
Brutal.
Yeah, that was long. That was a long ride. The most I've run, I think, is just over 20K in like a workout or something.
Okay.
And then swimming, I think we used to do a 10K swim every kind of pre-Christmas training camp. Back when I was in high school and stuff.
Burn some extra calories for that.
Yeah,
turkey
exactly.
And that candy, baked goods. That's intense.
So yeah, that was kind of fun.
Would you ever like is a marathon or anything like that in your future? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Like I just do it just to say I've done one. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like the ultra marathons and that kind of?
Yeah, it's kind of
stuff?
crazy. That stuff, like people are like, yeah, I did my 100K trail run, and I'm just like, what? Like, man, that's crazy. But you know, it's very popular. Seems to be growing quite a bit. So
there's something similar for. There's like isn't there a super Ironman or something like
that? I think it's like a Deca Ironman or something. People do 10 Ironmans in a row, or the distance of 10 Ironmans. It's insane. Like, I'm addicted to exercise. I'm not that addicted.
Not yet.
No, not yet anyways. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, there's always going to be extremes out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll fall into that, but...
Yeah. But, I mean, man, you seem like a really driven guy. You've been accomplishing your goals. Like I've had the privilege to kind of, you know, watch you from afar during these last years. And what kind of advice do you have to anybody out there for accomplishing their own goals, or kind of?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what I alluded to earlier about having these goals. It's kind of funny. You know, I started university really long time ago, and I'm not finished. And you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to my goals with it, and my big problem is I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to get a degree in. So it's kind of like all up in the air, and I don't have a goal. And so yeah, that's hard because I haven't really made that much progress, and I know it's because I don't have a specific kind of goal or something I'm chasing. So for me, I think it's so important to have these big goals, and then break it down to smaller goals that you can kind of chase every day, and because it just gives you purpose, I guess, at the end of the day.
Do you write these down and stuff, or do you?
Not necessarily. Like I have these things in my mind, but it's probably worthwhile to write down for sure. And I mean, you know, things can change, and you can change your goals and all that. I think it's important to be able to, you know, I guess, not have these things set in stone because life changes or whatever.
Stay dynamic.
But yeah, it's good to just have something to be chasing for sure.
Wow. Well, I wouldn't want to be chasing you
No.
in these future
Hopefully,
races.
gotta keep working. Gotta keep working.
Yeah. Well, we're really excited to. I don't know why I referred to myself as we, but I'm very excited
We.
to see where you end up and
Sure.
to see you competing
Yeah,
in
that's
the 2020 Olympics.
Sweet, yeah, that's the goal. Hopefully, make everybody proud back home. That's the
Dude.
goal.
Well, thanks a bunch for doing this.
Sure, thanks,
It's been a
man.
lot of fun.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, dude.
On the bed.
Yeah, on the bed in the shed.
In the shed.
Nice.